Hey everybody, Tim Ulbrich here, and thank you for listening to the YFP podcast, where each week we strive to inspire and encourage you on your path towards achieving financial freedom. This week we're going back to the basics to talk about the emergency fund and 5 questions that you need to ask to make sure your emergency fund is optimized. I get it, not the most exciting part of the financial plan, but a key piece to make sure that we can move forward with other financial goals from a strong foundation and peace of mind, knowing that we have a backstop in place. Before we jump into today's show, let me tell you about an upcoming webinar that I am pumped up about, one that I've never done before. On May 9th at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, I'll be presenting on the pharmacist path to becoming a millionaire. During this free webinar, I'll break down the simple math to becoming a 7-figure pharmacist, common myths associated with millionaire status, savings vehicles that pharmacists commonly use to build wealth, top barriers to becoming a millionaire, habits of those who achieve the millionaire status, and a system that you can implement to be on track for that 7-figure pharmacist status. We truly hope you can make it live. Those who attend live can enter for a chance to win a $100 Amazon gift card. If you can't make it live, no worries. Just register for the webinar and we'll send you a replay link afterwards. You can learn more and register at yourfinancialpharmacist.com/million. Again, that's yourfinancialpharmacist.com/million. All right, let's hear from today's sponsor, First Horizon, and then we'll jump into the show. Does saving 20% for a down payment on a home feel like an uphill battle? It's no secret that pharmacists have a lot of competing financial priorities, including high student loan debt, meaning that saving 20% for a down payment on a home may take years. For several years now, we've been partnering with First Horizon, who offers a professional home loan option, aka a doctor or pharmacist loan, that requires a 3% down payment for a single family home or townhome for first-time home buyers, has no PMI, and offers a 30-year fixed rate mortgage on home loans up to $766,550 in most areas. The pharmacist home loan is available in all states except Alaska and Hawaii and can be used to purchase condos as well. However, rates may be higher and a condo review has to be completed. To check out the requirements for First Horizon's pharmacist home loan and to start the pre-approval process, visit yourfinancialpharmacist.com/home-loan. Again, that's yourfinancialpharmacist.com/home-loan. Hey guys, Tim Ulbrich here. This week we're going back to the foundations on an area of the financial plan that often gets overlooked, the emergency fund, also known as the rainy day fund. Now, let's be honest, saving for a rainy day, saving for emergency, it's not fun, right? Nor is it easy. It takes discipline, it takes patience, and it takes trust to save for something that you can't see, feel, or experience in the moment. I have found in talking with other pharmacists that this is especially true when there's other goals that are of perceived higher priority, right? This could be debt repayment, this could be investing, catching up for retirement, maybe saving for a big purchase like a home or a real estate property. When those other goals are staring you at the face, especially when they are more tangible goals, it can be hard to take the time and to implement the discipline to make sure the emergency fund is where it needs to be. Now, let me give you a few examples. In the not too distant past, Jess and I have dipped into our emergency fund for an unexpected knee surgery. This was ultimately paid for 100% out of pocket, thanks to a high deductible out of pocket max plan. We had a dislocated elbow for our youngest, a trip to the ER for a busted lip for our oldest, who apparently, with 4 boys, it's a good idea, or they think it's a good idea, to play hide and seek in the dark in the basement that led to the split lip, right? The point is, life happens. And for some, that life happens is going to be unexpected healthcare expenses. You know, even when you have good insurance, it can lead to significant cash out-of-pocket expenses in the form of deductibles and payments towards that out-of-pocket max. For others, the emergency could be the inevitable surprises that come along with owning a home. For those of you that owned a home for some time, you know this to be true, right? This could be a pipe that bursts. This could be trees that need to be taken down, an appliance that stops working suddenly, a garage door that breaks, right? There are an infinite number of things that can ultimately go wrong with a home. And of course, there's always the possibility of a job loss, hours being cut, or maybe even choosing to walk away from a less than ideal job situation, right? To put yourself in the driver's seat and to have the reserves, to have the cushion to make that decision. So whether it's one of the above, all of the above, or something else, it's not a matter of if, but when an emergency strikes. And Yes, the emergency fund provides dollars, right, to fund these things. And that certainly is important. But it also provides something that I think is underestimated and overlooked. And that is peace of mind and confidence. When you have an emergency fund that is earmarked for the unexpected, a bucket of dollars that is called your emergency fund, and here I'm talking the truly unexpected, right? Not the roof that we know we're going to have to replace at some point in the future, but the truly unexpected. When you have those dollars earmarked, an important mindset shift happens. You go from playing defense on your heels to playing offense, right? You're ready, you're prepared. Sure, you're going to be able to fund that emergency. You're not going to have to go into any additional debt. It's not going to derail other parts of your plan, but you ultimately are able to see forward with other goals and without this having you take a step back. There's breathing room, right? There's margin to deal with the unexpected and to move on. And perhaps even for some, a position to be able to take some calculated risks that otherwise would have been unthinkable because of that feeling that we have when we don't have reserves set aside. So the next time you have a conversation with your emergency fund, right? Here are 5 questions that I want you to ask it. And I really want you to critically evaluate this important part of the financial plan. And this is not a one and done, right? This is something that is going to evolve over time. Your expenses change over time, different risks that might be present in your life change over time, right? So we have to be coming back to this periodically. And I'll talk about that here in a few moments. So here are 5 questions that I want you to ask as it relates to your emergency fund. Number 1, is it adequately funded? Right? Generally speaking, the target for an emergency fund is 3 to 6 months worth of essential expenses. Now, think of essential expenses as those things that you would continue to fund even in the event of a job loss or some type of emergency, right? Housing, food, transportation, clothing, minimum debt payments, minimum insurance coverage, and so forth, right? These are our core essential expenses. And we're going to use that metric of our essential expenses to multiply that by 3 to 6 to come up with a range of what we're shooting for with the emergency fund. So let's say you have essential expenses that add up to $5,000 per month. Therefore, 3 to 6 times that would be $15,000 to $30,000 is going to be the target that we're shooting for with the emergency fund. Now, determining if it's 3 months, is it 6 months, or is it somewhere in between, depends on a lot of different factors, right? What else is going on in the financial plan? So, do you have other high interest rate debt that you're trying to tackle or other goals that you're trying to catch up on? It also depends on your risk tolerance. How comfortable are you or are you not with 3 or 4 versus 6 months? And I think the other factor to consider is whether or not you have more than one income in the house, right? Are there dependents? Is there one income, 2 incomes, and so forth? Because that ultimately is going to help us decide what type of risk is there and how we can mitigate that risk. So that's number 1. Is your emergency fund adequately funded? Number 2 is, do you have too much saved in your emergency fund? Now, while there's value in having a cushion, right? That's what we've already been talking about here on the show. Having too much of a cushion certainly comes with an opportunity cost. Every financial decision that we make has an opportunity cost, right? And we have to evaluate that cost carefully. So, yes, it is possible to have too much cash on hand, just like it's possible to have too little cash on hand. So if you have high interest rate debt that's accruing interest and you're behind on retirement savings, all the while you have $150,000 in a checking account, hopefully not a checking account, but certainly something I've seen before, or even perhaps in a savings account, never say never, but that likely is too much, right? And we need to allocate that to other parts of the financial plan. Now, there are certainly circumstances where something beyond 6 months may make sense, right? Some individuals, maybe have one income in the household, there's a business, or there's other life scenarios where there's higher risk situations. So again, general rule of thumb, but what we're talking about here with the second question is that there is potentially a threshold, and I've seen this several times with pharmacists, where we have too much saved in an emergency fund at the expense of other goals we could be working on. All right, that's question 2. Number 3, are you optimizing your emergency fund? One of the most common mistakes that I see is an emergency fund that is sitting in a checking account earning next to nothing, right? These accounts paying out a whopping 0.01, 0.02, 0.03% interest. So I want you to take that emergency fund and get into something that is working for you a little bit better than what you're going to get in a checking account, right? This could be a high yield savings account, could be a money market account, could be US Treasuries, right? Something that is earning more than what we traditionally see in a checking account. And here in 2024, we're in May of 2024, we see most high yield savings accounts in the 4.2 to 4.6 range, right? So they're out there, and there's certain things that we want to be looking for when we're choosing that high yield savings account. Certainly interest rate is one component, but we also want to make sure that if we don't have a ton to put aside, we don't want to be incurring significant fees because of minimum deposit requirements or ongoing maintenance fees. These accounts exist, they're accessible, and there's something you should certainly be able to implement your own plan. This is an easy win to have your emergency fund grow with you as your general cost of living expenses are going to grow over time, right? If we have our account in a high yield savings account as one example that's earning 4.5%, right? Inflation, as we've seen, certainly could be higher than that, but it's at least going to keep us moving along in the right direction. So that's number 3. Are we optimizing our emergency fund? Number 4, does your emergency fund need a boost? As I alluded to earlier in the show, an emergency fund is not a set it and forget it type of thing, right? Inflation, we've all experienced that over the past few years. Lifestyle changes, that could be, kids, a home purchase, a number of things that happen, often necessitate a need for a reevaluation and a periodic boost to the emergency fund to get it back to the point of being fully funded at that 3 to 6 months of essential expenses. Now, there's a couple ways that I like to do this. One is to set a date in the calendar each year, right? Could be the turn of the year. I know some people like to do when the clocks change. Could be your birthday, anniversary, whatever. Some calendar reminder at least once a year, maybe even twice a year if you have a lot of changes that are going on, but at least once a year where you're checking up on that account and then resetting, recalibrating what's needed in that account. Now, of course, if you have major changes that are happening along the way, don't wait, right, until that date if you know that those changes are coming. The second way that I like to do this, and I alluded to this just a moment ago, is any interest that I earn on my high yield savings account, not just in the emergency fund, but if I'm saving for other things, right? If we're putting aside money for, let's say, a home remodel, a project with a home, or for the roof that's going to be need to be repaired in the future, a number of things, a vacation we could be saving for, any interest that we're earning on our high yield savings accounts that get paid out monthly, we just reallocate into the emergency fund to keep it steadily growing each month. Again, the idea of that is that we're trying to at least keep it up to the pace with inflation. Now, this again isn't going to cover big adjustments that are needed, but it's a good way to automate your emergency fund getting some love each month. So that's number 4. Does your emergency fund need a boost? Making sure that we're checking up on that regularly. And number 5 is your emergency fund separate from your everyday checking account? Now, this is what I like to call an easy win, right? Easy win. I often talk with pharmacists and, they may say something like, well, I've got about 25, 30, $40,000 saved. And about 8 or 10 of that I kind of have for month-to-month expenses with maybe a little bit of a cushion. And the rest of that I just kind of know is there for an emergency fund. If you've been listening to the show before, you know that we love to create buckets, right? Put a name to what the dollars are for. So rather than having that all in one lump sum account, if you've got $20,000 of that earmarked for an emergency, put it in a savings account, call it an emergency. If part of that is for a vacation, or a home project or another goal that you're working on, put it in an account and call it that goal so we have a visual representation of what those funds are being used for. Now, is that going to move the needle in terms of the dollar and cents? Not necessarily. But again, it's about that mindset shift when we're really being intentional with allocating those funds and what they're being used for. So this is an easy win, something powerful about naming your funds according to the purpose. And it creates, as I mentioned, an important delineation and really helps protect against the urge to pull from those funds, right? Which I think is much easier to do if all of those are meshed together. Well, short and sweet, there you have it. 5 questions to evaluate your emergency fund. Again, not the most exciting part of the financial plan, but one that we regularly want to be coming back to make sure that we have ourselves in the right mindset as we're working towards other goals, knowing that we're pursuing those goals from the place of having a strong financial foundation. If our team of certified financial planners can help you at any part in your own financial journey, don't hesitate to reach out. You can learn more about our financial planning and tax and accounting services that we offer through YFP planning and YFP tax by going to yourfinancialpharmacist.com. You'll see more information there on the homepage. Thanks so much for listening and have a great rest of your week. Before we wrap up today's show, I want to again thank this week's sponsor of the Your Financial Pharmacist podcast, First Horizon. We're glad to have found a solution for pharmacists that are unable to save 20% for a down payment on a home. A lot of pharmacists and the YFP community have taken advantage of First Horizon's pharmacist home loan, which requires a 3% down payment for a single-family home or townhome for first-time home buyers and has no PMI on a 30-year fixed-rate mortgage. To learn more about the requirements for First Horizon's pharmacist home loan and to get started with the pre-approval process, you can visit yourfinancialpharmacist.com/home-loan. Again, that's yourfinancialpharmacist.com/home-loan. As we conclude this week's podcast, an important reminder that the content on this show is provided to you for informational purposes only and is not intended to provide and should not be relied on for investment or any other advice. Information in the podcast and corresponding materials should not be construed as a solicitation or offer to buy or sell any investment or related financial products. We urge listeners to consult with a financial advisor with respect to any investment. Furthermore, the information contained in our archived newsletters, blog posts, and podcasts is not updated and may not be accurate at the time you listen to it on the podcast. Opinions and analyses expressed herein are solely those of your financial pharmacist unless otherwise noted and constitute judgments as of the dates published. Such information may contain forward-looking statements which are not intended to be guarantees of future events. Actual results could differ materially from those anticipated in the forward-looking statements. For more information, please visit yourfinancialpharmacist.com/disclaimer. Thank you again for your support of the Your Financial Pharmacist podcast. Have a great rest of your week.